Gentlemen, let's move to prime time on Friday night. This is the one that's going to have all of our attention. I'm talking about the, what is it, Cotton Holdings, Lone Star Showdown, Texas A&M, and Texas. The Aggies are 2.5-point favorites. They are the number 3 team in the country. This one feels like revenge for the Aggies. They lost 17-7 at Kyle Field last year. The offense just couldn't get anything going. And while the defense certainly did their part and made a number of key stops late, the offense just couldn't get off the mat. This year, though, it feels like the exact opposite, where you look at what Texas's defense has kind of struggled to do over their last 5 games, especially, and you start to lick your chops at what Colin Klein and this Aggie offense might be able to do to Texas. The Longhorn defense over the last 5 games, guys, 512 yards and 37 points to Arkansas, 367 yards and 35 points versus Georgia, 433 yards and 31 points versus Vandy, albeit in a big-time comeback in the second half, 445 yards and 38 points versus Mississippi State, and they also gave up almost 400 yards to Kentucky. They kind of kicked off that Kentucky renaissance on the offensive side of the ball. All of that to say, this isn't the bulletproof Texas defense that it had been over the last 2 years. And while they do get Texas A&M at home, it feels like the Aggies are certainly the better team, the more complete team. They're 2.5-point favorites here. Garrett, let's start with you. The Aggies are trying to go 12-0 for the first time since 1992 when they marched into Austin and beat the Longhorns to complete that perfect season. Do they get it done?
Yeah, I'm going to go 10 toes in the dirt right here and say that the Aggies are going to win this one and they're going to cover. And there's a lot of confidence that I have in this one for A&M. But if you want any evidence of that, just go listen to Mike Elko's press conference and ask yourself, with all the narrative that's been going on in some of the previews, how A&M's 11-0, they really don't even need this one, right? Like, yeah, you go to Atlanta, but you still get a 5 seed if you, at the worst, right? Oh my gosh, 11-1 A&M, that's still okay, and you don't even need. Go listen to Mike Elko and ask yourself if 11-0 and an automatic playoff berth and all that stuff. Ask if he's thinking any of that just by the tone of his voice. I don't think there's a single person in that Aggie locker room who doesn't view this as a must-win game. Even with the fact that, if you're looking at the Texas side, they need this one as well, right? If they're going to keep their slim, but still technically their playoff hopes alive, they got to have this game. This has got to be a win for them, and it's probably got to be pretty resounding. There's a lot of preview stuff that I've seen so far that has made a lot about A&M's defense having its handful with the Texas offense, and to me, this is a little bit of a bizarre take. First off, Texas can't really run the football, and that has been the A&M weakness on defense, is those kind of big plays that they give up in the run. It seems like every now and then they'll just kind of let one slide, and then there he goes for 20, 30, 40 yards. That's not really something that Texas does. I don't know if they just can't or if they just won't, but they just don't run the football. With a one-dimensional offense, I just don't think that's going to work against a Mike Elko defense. The key for A&M on this defensive side is going to be tackling on the perimeter, trying to keep Texas behind the chains, and then go let your third down defense, which is the best in the country, keep the drives short for Texas and get that ball back for you. For me, again, the better question, Mitch, you were talking about it, how is Texas stopping the A&M offense? It feels like they're guaranteed to score a bunch of points in this one. Again, they've only failed to reach 30 points one time this season. It seems like every time they go on the road, they're scoring 40 or dang near close to 40. I think their lowest scoring on the road so far has been 38 against Mizzou or whatever it was. So if you're just going on road games and what you'd expect the Aggie offense to do, you could probably expect them to put up around 40 points on something like 450 to 500 yards of offense. That's what it seems like they do. You talk about Texas being good against the run. They've given up some bigger numbers against teams that actually run the football, right? 159 against Florida, 128 against Georgia, 188 last week against Arkansas. I don't think they're going to be able to keep up in this one. They're not a great defense at yards after the catch. That's a lot of what A&M's offensive identity is built around, is just kind of the quick game, making it work. Look at the last couple quarters of action for Marcel Reed. He seems to have found something else. Take all of that away. I just love the intangibles for A&M. It's a chance to go undefeated in Austin. You get payback for last year. It's a rivalry week. You get a chance to go to Atlanta. Plus, you get to go shove it to all the doubters who have said that you're not that good, you hadn't really played anybody, and then you're playing a Texas team that needs this win to keep their playoff hopes alive. and there's been some coaching drama you might want to, quell as well and everything else. A&M's more tested. A&M's the better team. They haven't folded under pressure one time this year. I do not want to do this, but I'm picking them, right? It feels like I'm going to get hurt again. It feels like I got way too much confidence and I'm not going to see it. But the team motto this year is finish. And they're going to finish.
Yeah, I'm with you, Garrett. As someone who said in the preseason that no team was going to go undefeated in the regular season, I had never in my wildest dreams that I think Texas A&M would be one of 2 or 3 teams that could make that wrong as we go into the last week of the season. But yeah, I look at this spread, y'all. It's 2.5. I think a lot of that's baking in the home field. I think all year long, the spreads have kind of baked in just the talent that Texas has. One of the most talented rosters in the country, no doubt about it. But for all the talk about A&M not putting a full game together, have the Longhorns had a single outing this year where both the offense and the defense have shown up on the same day against a Power 4 team? Sam Houston, they have a couple wins lately. Congratulations, Bearcats, but I don't think they count for these purposes. I would say no. I don't think they've had a game where both the offense and the defense has shown up. Has the offense gotten better throughout the season? Absolutely, as they figured out what Arch is good at. Has the defense kind of taken a step back as injuries have mounted up? As they last week, talk about the run game, Garrett. Last week they were without Anthony Hill, and he's highly questionable this week, I think, still. So he's probably going to play. I bet he finds a way to play in this one. But when I look at just things where Texas might have the advantage, right? The big playability is definitely there. Texas can break off a long touchdown run, especially if you miss a tackle, like A&M has been prone to do in years past. And sometimes this year it snuck up, especially on the outside. If they hit a quick screen to Ryan Wingo and he goes for 80 yards, wouldn't surprise me in the slightest. Texas could score if you mess up on the outside and miss tackles. They can also force Marcel Reed off his spot, and they can force him to make some mistakes, right? Like that defensive line can still get to the quarterback. Colin Simmons is probably going to be very motivated for this one. I don't know if he's going to do the whole Instagram thing that he did against Ohio State like he did at the beginning of the year, but I think he's going to be very motivated for this one, and he's going to make it his mission to make Marcel Reed make a couple of mistakes. And look, Marcel, for as good as he's been this year, has really, the mistakes have been there. You can almost count on at least one per game, sometimes more, like that first half against South Carolina, and he can't let them snowball like he did against South Carolina. He absolutely cannot let them do that. But those are big advantages for Texas. When I flip it to the other side, guys, I see a lot of advantages for A&M, and that's why I'm picking them ultimately to win and cover here. The A&M D-line versus the Texas offensive line. Texas had a nice day against Arkansas, but I think the game plan is going to be dictated by Texas offensive game plan is going to be dictated by this A&M defensive line. They're going to have to get the ball out quick. They're going to have to find creative ways to run the football if they want to try to commit to that. They're going to try to do what LSU did in the very beginning of the game and had some moderate success for a couple drives, but how long is that going to work against Mike Elko with how good he is at adjustments in the game? I think, Garrett, you mentioned this. A&M's pass game looks like it's going to be a big advantage against the Texas secondary. They're giving up 295 yards per game in SEC play through the air. A&M's fine passing to set up the run. We've seen that time and time again this year when the run game's not working early. And just getting better throughout the game, guys. A&M is plus 117 in scoring in the second half in conference games that year. That's averaging 16.7 points per game better than their conference opponents in the second half this year. A&M just gets better as the game goes on. And we've seen multiple times this year Texas fall apart in the fourth quarter. Vanderbilt, Georgia. They got better last week against Arkansas, but it was after Taylon Green got hurt, right? So bottom line, this is going to be a crazy game, insane atmosphere. I'm a little worried that the hype might be too big for this A&M team. They want that revenge so bad. They might press a little bit coming out of the gate. We've seen that a few times when they're just trying too hard to make a play this year. But bottom line here, Texas has covered the spread twice this year against power conference opponents, and both times it was with it involved a quarterback injury. It was against Oklahoma with John Mateer was coming back from hand surgery, and last week when Taylon Green was knocked out of the game. So I think those algorithms are a little bit off on Texas this year. I just think they are. They're really bad against the spread. So give me the Aggies to finish off the 12-0 perfect regular season.
Which is crazy. It's crazy to even think that.
I wanted to bring up another thing that you made me think of, Trey. How crazy is the narrative going into this one? That you have one team that's 11-0, obvious lock for the college football playoff, and another team that's 8-3, trying their best not to go 8-4. Like, we all saw that coming in the preseason, right? Like, we all saw that one of them has a quarterback who's definitely in the Heisman conversation. One of them has a quarterback who's gotten better through the course of the year, right? Improving week to week, starting to show that he can both pass and run the football. Obviously, we all saw this coming, right? This was the exact response. Wait a minute, you're telling me one of those teams is actually Texas A&M? That's the one that's 11-0? That's the kind of shocking thing, how the narrative is so quickly flipped from one to the other. I thought about that earlier this week. I was like, man, I got to remember to say that. And then you reminded me of it, so I had to bring that one up. So
yeah, the old Mongolian reversal.
Yeah.
I'm also on the Aggies here. I think they've got the better defense. Trey, you mentioned the secondary, the stats that kind of outline how Texas has really struggled. Their secondary's not been great at tackling either. And you talk about Casey Concepcion, Mario Craver, Terry Bussey, Ashton Bethel Roman, who's been a revelation this second half of the year. A&M's got guys that will make you miss. And as I sat in the South end zone last year for A&M Texas and watched how Texas kind of dismantled the Aggies secondary. Now, they weren't punching them in for touchdowns, but the chunk play, the big play over the top was what Sark kept trying to set up, and they would inevitably hit. This year, I think that advantage lies with the Aggies. I know that Sark's game plan with Arch is going to be get those athletes in space, but last year, A&M's secondary specifically, they could not cover the deep ball, right? They could not cover the middle of the field. This year, they've been very good at that. Now, they are going to give up a big play or two, right? You can take that to the bank. That's happened all year long. And I've heard from others, they believe that the secondary may not be as good, as bulletproof as what the numbers would indicate. A top 25 secondary. They've given up some big plays. They've missed some tackles, and that's certainly the key to a Texas victory here. But you talk about 4 quarters, and you talk about Texas or Texas A&M being more consistent over those 4 quarters. I think you guys have both outlined it. I just don't know that Texas has actually given us an example of how they do that. And now you're expecting them to do that on the biggest stage when they're trying to ruin a rival season. Oh, by the way, they're also playing for the continuation of their own season. It just feels like one team has matched the moment stride for stride every single week, and one of those teams has not. And so I'll take Texas A&M to win that game as well. Anxiety inducing. Have the Tums ready, not only because of what we've eaten, but because of what else may be going on. The acid reflux, I'm sure, is going to be undefeated this weekend.
One thing I want to say on this, though, I'm so glad that we're not live streaming directly after this game, because if we lost, it'd be miserable. And if we end up winning this game, we'd be miserable to view for several people. So it's I'm just glad that we get a day to digest this and not be totally insufferable depending on how this game goes.
Yeah, no doubt.